Coming up on Eyes on Golf, it's time to rank all 89 players playing in the Masters tournament, 1 through 89. And that's right. So this concept, I'll give credit to Dan Rappaport. I remember seeing him now at Barstool Sports, but I remember seeing him back, I think when he was back at Golf Digest, even before Sports Illustrated, that he had this idea to rank the entire field. It's not a crazy creative idea, but to rank the field 1 through 89. I believe he does it for every major. I think this is, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If I got that right. This is not exactly, I don't want to say I'm stealing an idea. I think that others have latched onto this. I think it's a great idea. I think that everyone has different lists, 1 through 89. I read Dan's. It's Monday afternoon right now of Masters week. I read his, and his is different than mine. So there are definitely differences out there. Before we start, I just want to touch on this week in golf. What a weekend it was. Rarely, you don't expect the weekend before the Masters to be such a big deal, but it really was. On the PGA Tour side, Akshay Bhatia, in dramatic fashion, wins the Valero Texas Open in a playoff with Denny McCarthy. Denny shoots 28 on the back, birdies 8 of 9 holes, including the last 7 holes. Akshay birdies on top of him on 18. Fist pumps to go to the playoff. His shoulder apparently comes out of his socket or something. Has to call on the physio who used to work in the Orlando Magic training department. Comes on. Denny McCarthy hits his third shot on the par 5 18th that they're playing as a playoff hole into the water. So his magic is gone. Akshay puts it on, ends up making the putt, wins in the playoff to get his second win, 22 years of age. Turned pro when he was 17. A lot has been made of his journey. Took a little bit to get to the PGA Tour, had conditional status, or really temporary status last year, won on the PGA Tour, wins again now for his second win, and gets the last spot in the Masters to make it, to get this, to be the last guy in and to make his first Masters. So it's been a journey. He's also the first player from the Drive, Chip, and Putt, which was yesterday, celebrating its 10-year anniversary, from the Drive, Chip, and Putt finals at Augusta National to make it to the Masters. So congrats to Akshay. Good fight from Denny McCarthy. They'll both be playing in their first Masters. Over on the Korn Ferry Tour, Stephen Fisk, 26-year-old Georgia native, gets his first win at the Club Car Championship in Savannah. Does it by beating the physicist Rob Oppenheim in a playoff over there on the Korn Ferry Tour. And how about Nelly Korda? What can be said of what Nelly Korda is doing right now? She wins for the fourth straight start on the LPGA Tour. She wins the T-Mobile Match Play 4-3 in the final against Leona Maguire. So that's about, and then we have to just mention Live Miami. Dean Burmester beat Sergio Garcia in a playoff and was asked if he should be in the Masters. He's not in the Masters. You don't have to know about Dean Burmester for the sake of what we're talking about. Greg Norman also said Taylor Gooch is the best iron player that he's seen. I can't remember if it was all time, sometime, the last 20 years, something like that. Hard to take some of this stuff seriously, but Dean Burmester beats Sergio Garcia, who we will have to talk about. I will say that as we get into this. But again, it's time to rank the Masters field 1 through 89. I'm going to start with the guys that I'll say are happy to be there. This first category. We'll go in reverse. So I'm reading my notes upside down. But Jose Maria Olazabal, unfortunately, number 89. A couple of these guys in the back, past Masters champions, guys who can play the tournament for life, but it's just not what it used to be for them. He has played a little bit, 3 starts this year on the PGA Tour champions. Mike Weir, 88, Vijay Singh, 87, all guys who, have won the tournament, but it's not exactly their time. Danny Willett, I have at 86. You might be saying, why is it so far back? Danny Willett hasn't played because of injury since September. He's making his first start since September. So I have him coming at 86 because we're gonna see what we get out of Danny Willett, the 2016 champion. Jasper Stubbs, the Australian, the Asia Pacific Amateur champion. A bit of a surprise when he won. He's at 85th. Hasn't really shown enough on the amateur circuit, but I am going to give the 22-year-old the benefit of the doubt over some of the legends of the game. I will put Fred Couples at 84th because Fred Couples, even in his age right now, he continues to impress at Augusta. You just feel like Fred, he might be going until he retires. He's going to have a chance to make the cut here. Zach Johnson at 83rd. Just hasn't had the flashes on the PGA Tour. Still playing PGA Tour golf, a couple of years away from that PGA Tour Champions run, but just haven't loved where Zach's game has been at. At 82, Stuart Hagestad making his third appearance, third time a mid-am champion. He has been the low amateur before at the Masters. Still incredible stuff for a guy who has a day job, who does this on the side. I got Stuart Hagestad coming in at 82. I've got another amateur, Santiago de la Fuente. Great, just a full-on great name. Watched him a little bit at the Mexico Open at Vedanta this year. He made the cut there. He is the Latin American Amateur Championship winner. So we'll see if he can take that cut run, a little different tournament, the Mexico Open at Vedanta, to the Masters. Charles Schwartzel at 80th does have a third place finish this year on Live at Live Jeddah, but no better than 38th in the other four events. As we go on, obviously, I'm trying to figure out how to judge the Live events. We'll figure that out. Gary Woodland at 79, still getting in with that U.S. Open exemption, needs to start showing up to continue to play majors. Camilo Villegas back in the action after his win in the fall. I have him at 78th. Bubba Watson at 77th. Still, in that 40-something range, but he's 40th on Live this year. He's finished 33rd or worse in his last three events. Neil Shipley, the tank, 76th. Should say the battleship. Stole our hearts playing Nick Dunlap last year in the U.S. Amateur final. Apparently, he told golf.com before this week he'd already played 100 holes at Augusta National this year. So maybe Neil figuring something out. Not the highest ranked amateur in the world, but obviously has had success under pressure. 75th, Kurt Kitayama, a guy I thought would make a big jump this year after winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational last year. It just hasn't happened yet, so I have him at 75th. Christo Lamprecht, we got a taste of him in the Open Championship last year. The big swinger, I got him at 74th, the amateur. He'll turn pro soon, and he will be on the top level before we know it. Lee Hodges' dominant win last year at the 3M Open. You never know when he can pop off. Just hasn't really done it since. I have him at 73rd. Adrian Meronk at 72nd. Remember, he could have been on the PGA Tour last year with his incredibly impressive DP World Tour season last year. Decided to go to Live instead. Hasn't finished better than 10th in a Live golf event. Missed the cut last year at the Masters, his debut. So I have him checking in at 72nd. Thornbjorn Olesen at 71st. Got that special exemption. Him, Joaquin Niemann, and Ryo Hisatsune for being international players that had a great end to 2023 and start on the DP World Tour side to 2024. Hasn't really put it together stateside so far. Ryan Fox, another guy who's had a lot of DP World Tour success. I have him at 70th. Hasn't done it yet on the PGA Tour this season, but has the firepower. Luke List won last year on the PGA Tour in the fall. He's still got that winning ability, 2 times a winner in the last couple of years, but has not had the consistency. Totally different player at 68th. Peter Malnati back in the field at the Masters, riding high after that win at the Valspar Championship. We'll see what sort of Peter shows up here at the Masters. Grayson Murray, 67th. I thought he'd be higher after what he did at the Sony Open in Hawaii, but hasn't really continued to progress. Eric Cole at 66, continuing to play steady, maybe a little down this year in 2024 compared to his rookie season in 2023. We'll see if he can turn that around. Lucas Glover, the amazing finish he had to 2023, has shown some flashes over the last few weeks. I have him at 65th. Ryo Hisatsune, I just mentioned, the Sir Henry Cotton Award winner, Rookie of the Year on the DP World Tour last year, gets a special invite this year. 64th. Maybe I have him down too far. He's got the firepower, young player from Japan. He's going to win on the PGA Tour. He's going to be around. He's going to compete in majors. Is he ready right now? Matthew Pavon, another player who got onto the PGA Tour this year, by way of his success on the DP World Tour last year. Probably going to be an Olympian this year for France in Paris. He kind of took his foot off the gas, took a designated event right off, did not come to a signature event, did not come to the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am right after he won at Torrey Pines. So it's been a little bit of a spotty run for Matthew Pavon's. Played a little in Europe. I need to see more from him. Ricky Fowler at 62. This is his first Masters since 2020. 3 top 10s in the past. Ricky just hasn't really, going back to the Ryder Cup last year, just has gone back a little bit, gone backwards after a really impressive 2023. Maybe this will be the place that he finds it again, a place he's had success, but we shall see. Austin Eckroat, 61st, won the Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches. He's got the talent. Oklahoma State guy like Ricky Fowler, just hasn't shown that much of it in the last couple weeks. Jake Knapp, another guy who had that dramatic win at the Mexico Open at Vedanta, but hasn't kept the momentum going. I have him at 60th. Sepp Straka, you never know what you're going to get from Sepp. I have him at 59th. He could go all the way to a top 5, or he could miss the cut tremendously. Just don't know. Nick Taylor, not an amateur next to his name. He's a pro at 58th. Dropped his amateur exemption for winning the U.S. Amateur. Gets the exemption for winning the American Express this year. Starting to see some flashes from Nick Dunlap. It was a little bumpy in those first few designated events, those first few signature events after his win at the American Express, but he seems to be figuring things out, seems to be playing a little bit better. So maybe look out for Nick Dunlap to start to pull his season around. Taylor Moore at 57th, another guy who has had some success, some consistency over the last year on the PGA Tour, like his game, like his ball striking for Augusta. Harris English. It's been a while since we've really seen Harris at the top, but he's been working his way back. I like him here at 56th. Adam Scott has gotten some exemptions into the signature events this year, just hasn't been the same old Adam Scott, but you never know at Augusta. A little bit of a horse for course situation for him. Justin Rose at 54th. Great year last year. Trying to put together that consistency again this year. Kind of waiting for it on his end. So we'll see if we can get that from Justin Rose. Adam Schenk at 53rd. Here's another guy who, if you're not really following Adam Schenk, you might not recognize what he has been doing over the last couple of years. Couple runner-up finishes, really consistent play. I like him to come out to maybe turn that into success at a major coming up. Cameron Davis at 52nd. It's been inconsistent, but he's got the firepower. He's got the length to compete at Augusta. Tom Kim at 51st. This should be higher. It's about health with Tom Kim. Not sure what Tom Kim we're going to get. He's withdrawn recently. Not sure if we're going to get the full Tom Kim experience. T2 at the Open Championship last year. Still so young. Still so much potential. A little bit back of where we'd like to see him right now at the Masters. Eric Van Rooyen at 50th. He's had his moments in recent weeks. Emiliano Grillo, I like him to sneak onto the President's Cup team. He's had a couple flashes. He's got the ball striking to compete at Augusta. Ben On got off to a red-hot start to this season, had the runner-up at the Sony Open in Hawaii. Hasn't maybe held on to that, but I still like him at 48th to potentially compete this week. Chris Kirk got off to the start at the Century with the win. Maybe you were thinking, is he going to return to President's Cup, Ryder Cup form this year? Hasn't maintained the consistency, so I'm keeping him at 47th. JT Poston has been a sleeper of mine for the President's Cup. I got him at 46th. The way he putts, the way he rolls the rock, the way he strikes the ball, he could put it together at Augusta. North Carolina guy moving over down to Augusta. Siwoo Kim has all the intangibles, all the game at 45th. I probably should have mentioned, we're entering the contender zone right now. I think with Siwoo Kim at 45th. I have here 44 and 43, right basically in the middle. I have Phil Mickelson at 44, Tiger Woods at 43. Wasn't sure how to put these guys together. Who would go first? I got Phil at 44, who was, mind you, a runner-up last year here. One of the two runner-ups. He's a 3-time winner. Still, has not had the consistency on Live Golf, the PGA Tour, wherever you've put him over the last 3 to 5 years. So I have him at 44. I got Tiger at 43, back in the picture. Remember, did make the cut last year before withdrawing. We're going to see what Tiger we get. He claims to be healthy. He claims that the withdrawal at the Genesis Invitational was not because of a lingering health issue, not because of a physical issue. So if we get that Tiger, we should see a Tiger that should make the cut comfortably. Not sure if he's ready to compete, but should make the cut comfortably. Sungjae Im at 42nd, down year for him, but this is the place for him to get it going. T16 or better in 3 of his last 4 Masters. As we kind of start to look at the board too, I'm pulling up the odds board because Sungjae's at plus 9,000. Not sure how you'll get him, how many times you'll get him that low or that high, I should say, at a major championship. Nikolai Højgaard at 41st. This is his Masters debut. He's made 5 of 7 cuts this year on the PGA Tour. Started the year on the PGA Tour with a second at the Farmers Insurance Open. He's cooled off since then, but another guy, you got to wonder, how long are you going to see him all the way down? I see him at plus 20,000. That's crazy to me. He's a guy who's going to have that potential to win major championships. So watch out for Nikolai Højgaard as we take a look at Adam Hadwin at 40. He has a top 5 in 2 of his last 4 events on the PGA Tour, has been playing red hot golf, hasn't played in the Masters since 2020. So that makes me a little nervous, but he is hot right now. Sergio Garcia, I mentioned him off the top. We got to talk about Sergio. I'm shocked that we got to talk about Sergio in 2024. He's 44 years old, has only made 1 cut at the Masters since his 2017 win, but he has 2 runner-ups on Live Golf this year. If you're judging Live and thinking that you can convert that over to success at a major championship, then Sergio, 39's not light. I'm not putting him near the top, but I'm giving Sergio the benefit of the doubt at 39. Keegan Bradley at 38. Started off the season, was like Ben on, lost in that playoff to Grayson Murray at the Sony Open in Hawaii, but he's missed 3 of his last 4 cuts. T23 at the Masters last year. Not sure what to make of Keegan. He's a big game player. I don't like putting him any lower than 38, but I'm not overly confident with him so far this year. Steven Yeager, look out for this guy who's taken the jump this year. Just won the Texas Children's Houston Open. This is going to be his first start since that win. He's also got 3 top 10s on the season. He only has 7 in his PGA Tour career. 3 of the 7 have come in the first 3 months of 2024. He's got the swing speed up. He's doing everything to improve himself. So look out for Steven Yeager taking the leap. Maybe takes a big step at the Masters. Tyrrell Hatton, I have at 36th. It's not like he was blowing off the doors at majors before he went to Live Golf. His best Live finish so far this year was a 6th place, but it did happen just this past weekend in Miami. So maybe Tyrrell starting to find some form on his new tour. Corey Connors at 35, did miss the cut last year, but finished with a top 10 in his last 3 prior starts at the Masters. He's 9 for 9 in cuts made so far on the PGA Tour this year. T13 is his best finish so far this season, though, but a lot of consistent finishes at least. So he returns to a place that he has had success striking the ball at the Masters. Tony Finau, another ball striker right there at 34th, just had a backdoor T2, very backdoor T2 at the Texas Children's Houston Open. This is going to be his first start since then. Hasn't had a top 10 in his last 10 majors, but did have a top 10 in 5 of his last 6 before that. 3 Masters top 10. So maybe Tony pulling things around at the Masters here. Nick Taylor has been balling out. I got him at 33rd. A win in Phoenix at the WM Phoenix Open earlier this year. Seems to be rising to the occasion. Seems to be headed for his first President's Cup team at Royal Montreal later this year. Seems to be a guy who is just a big-time, big game player. He'll be making his 2nd start at the Masters. Cameron Smith's at 32, a little bit down than where you might expect him because he just withdrew with food poisoning in Miami. Claims that that's no big deal. He's still 12th on the season in Live Golf, but I just don't know what to make of Cam necessarily. 3 top 10s at the Masters in the 3 top 10s in the 3 years before last season when he finished T34 at the Masters. Did have 2 top tens in majors last year, but just waiting. That consistency seems to be gone from Cameron Smith that we saw really the 2 years in 2021 and 2022. I have Akshay Bhatia checking in at 31. I can't imagine that he's going to be rested coming off that win that he just had at the Valero Texas Open in San Antonio. He's making his Masters debut. He played in the drive, chip, and putt. He's been at Augusta National before. I don't think it's going to shell shock him. Only his second major start, first Masters start. We don't know how the shoulder is. We literally saw the physio come out to work with him on the 18th, on the playoff hole, the 73rd hole at the Valero Texas Open. So Akshay, I'm giving him 31st, but still not really sure what to make of all that. Sam Burns at 30th. This is a little bit just on legacy. 4 top 10s this year, but it's been a little bit. Those came early in the season. We're still early in the season, but those came early. He's never had a top 10 at a major. Still waiting to convert that PGA Tour success into major success. I have Minwoo Lee one stop ahead at 29, partly because I think his ceiling is higher than Sam Burns. He's got a T2 this year at the Cognizant Classic at the Palm Beaches. Still in the Palm Beaches, still a lot of high variance this season. T14 and a cut in 2 starts at the Masters. I think he's got the potential to shape the ball around Augusta. That's why I like him at 29. Russell Henley, maybe the most underrated player in professional golf over the last few years. T4 at Augusta. Did you know that last year? T4 at the Masters with Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed, who we'll get to in a moment. T15 or better in 3 of his last 4 starts at Augusta. Those have not been continuous, but they are 3 of his last 4. Just finished 4th last week at the Valero Texas Open. His 3rd top 5 of the season. They've all been 4th place finishes or T4s, 3 of them. Russell Henley, I have him at 28th. Tommy Fleetwood at 27th, still looking for that big finish. 4 top 10s in his last 7 majors. None of those at Augusta National. No top 10s at Augusta. Still looking for his first PGA Tour win, but Tommy seems to, over the course of his career, he's shown up at major championships. I have Denny McCarthy at 26, 5 spots ahead of Akshay Bhatia, who he lost to at the Valero Texas Open. Just mentioned that 28 on the back. His second playoff loss in the last calendar year, lost at the Memorial Tournament to Victor Hovland last year. How about 92 putts last week? That tied a 72-hole record on the PGA Tour. He was 3rd in putting last year, 2nd in putting the previous year. This is his rookie campaign at the Masters. Maybe surprising it's taken Denny McCarthy this long to play the Masters, but he screams to me Zach Johnson vibes to steal a major championship with the putter. That putter can get hot, and all of a sudden, Denny McCarthy can become one of the most dangerous players on the PGA Tour. We got a glimpse of it last week. If he can take that momentum into Augusta, I think 26 is the right position for him. Patrick Reed, I have a 25th. Just mentioned the T4 last year at the Masters, but he's 30th on LIV this season. No better than a 12th place finish that did come this past week in Miami. Patrick Reed, maybe just at the point that we're going to see him year after year compete at Augusta. He needs to finish high to start playing in other major championships this year. So a lot of pressure for Patrick Reed at Augusta. 1 spot ahead, Dustin Johnson at 24th, T48 at the Masters last year. Did have a T10 at the U.S. Open. Wasn't crazy Masters success. Opened this LIV season 5th and 1st. That first place at LIV Las Vegas, but has gone 28, 21, 25 in the 3 events since then. Justin Thomas at 23rd. Earlier in the season, I would have had a much higher T12 or better in 4 of his first 5 events this year, but has slowed up. 2 top 10s in his last 4 starts at Augusta. This will be his first event without Bones on the bag. Matt Minister, who had previously been the caddy for Patrick Cantlay before Patrick Cantlay started working with Joe LaCava, is on the bag for Justin Thomas. Maybe the couple weeks off that he took could help him get his head straight, figure things out. I got him at 23rd. Cameron Young at 22nd, had a runner-up at the Valspar Championship, his last start. 7th runner-up on the PGA Tour. He's got a T7 at the Masters. He's finished in the top 10 in 4 of his last 7 majors. The ball striking, the ingredients are all there. Cameron Young still trying to put it together for that first PGA Tour win, but rounding into form. Sahith Theegala is taking the leap this year. 9 starts this year, 4 top 10s, had a T6 at the API, T9 at the Players, finished 9th last year in his Masters debut. If he can get the ball off the tee, his ball striking, his work around the greens, his putting, he can put together something special. I think in his career at Augusta National, he is a threat at 21. Joaquin Niemann, I'm checking in at 20th. Some people will have him higher. So far on LIV this year, he's been outstanding. 2 first-place finishes, has a 33rd, a 4th, and an 11th last week in Miami. He has 19 major starts, and like Sam Burns, like we mentioned a moment ago, 0 top 10s. We can't underestimate that. We can't throw that away. His best finish at a major, though, was last year at the Masters, T16. So maybe Niemann starting to figure things out at major championships. Colin Morikawa at 19th. I know some people have him further down. He's been outstanding at the Masters, top 10 the last 2 seasons. So far this year, 5 out of 7 cuts made, 3 top 25s. Just made the cut at the Valero, Texas Open, 75-74 on the weekend to finish T75. Not inspiring, but Colin has the ball striking and shot making to get it done at Augusta. I think that's why he's had success at the Masters. So I think you got to throw out some of the struggles this year and recognize that he has the ability to compete here. And that's why I have him in the top 20 at 19. Shane Lowry is red hot. He's higher on people's boards, 4 straight top 25s. At the Masters, including a T3 in 2022. He's coming in with a T4 at the Cognizant, 3rd at API, T19 at Players, but just got to put it together for me again in a major championship. Obviously won the Open Championship a few years back, but the play of Shane Lowry over the last couple of years has not exactly been consistent. I need to see that before I move him on up. I have Bryson DeChambeau at 17. Maybe he surprised me a little bit. 4th, 7th, 7th in his last 3 LIV events. Did miss the cut last year at the Masters, what he has called a par 68 or even a par 67. But a T4 at the PGA Championship did show me that he can compete at major championships again, coming back from some of the physical problems that he had as he left the PGA Tour. He won 2 LIV events last year. I think this is going to be the most informed Bryson DeChambeau that we have seen at the Masters since he has gone to LIV Golf. So that's something to think about. I'm including, I guess, that first year, 2022. He was sort of on the verge of moving to LIV Golf. This will be the first real good Bryson we've seen at the Masters in probably 3 or 4 years. Ludwig Åberg, I have it 16th in his Masters debut. His major championship debut so far this year, he's 8 for 8 in cuts made on the PGA Tour, 6 top 25s, finished 8th of the Players, T14 at the Valero, and those are his last 2 starts. Had the runner-up finish at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, won last year at the end of the season on the PGA Tour and on the DP World Tour. He is going to win major championships. That's coming on up. I'm not worried about that from Ludwig. So look out for him as I have him at 16th. Jason Day, I have at 15th, 3 top 10s in 8 starts at the so far this season, 4 top 10s at the Masters, a T2 at the Open last year. All of a sudden, Jason Day at 36 wouldn't have expected to talk about this form that he's in. Played a practice round earlier this week with Tiger Woods. That means something to me. This is a guy who has done it, who has been around major championships, has had success, and I think is experiencing this second win to his career. I'm not afraid to put him up at 15th. 14th, I have Matt Fitzpatrick. Now, maybe this is a surprise for you, but he took the weights out of his driver, which if you didn't read this, he didn't realize he had put weights in his clubs at one point earlier around the springtime last year, realized that he didn't want to play with them, took him out of his irons. Somehow they stayed in his driver. He won the RBC Heritage last year, played in the Ryder Cup with these weights in his driver. He's taken them off. And now all of a sudden, a 5th at the Players, T10 at the Valero Texas Open in his last 2 starts, T14, T10 at the Masters the last 2 years. I like Matt Fitzpatrick back in form, back into maybe top 10 in the world consistently coming on up. As I start Matt Fitzpatrick, I should say, these are the players that I think can win, including Matt Fitzpatrick, the 2022 U.S. Open champion, who has a major championship under his belt. 13th, I have a guy who maybe hasn't had the major success, but I still think can win. Max Homa just finished T10 in his last major start at the Open, his first top 10 in a major. He has 5 top 25s and 8 starts this year, although his best finish was a T8 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, 2 for 4 in Masters cuts. And he's made his last 2. So that's important to note. Max Homa obviously has risen to the occasion in the last 2 to 3 years to become one of the best players in the world. Hasn't had immense success so far this year, but the way his ball striking is, the way his putting is, the way his gameplay is, I think he's set up for a really successful Masters tournament this year. At 12, Brian Harman, who played a lot with Max Homa at that Ryder Cup last year, the Open champion, the champion golfer of the world, T12 at the API, T2 at the Players, got cut at the Valspar after that dramatic Players runner-up, T25 last week at the Valero Texas Open. Those are his last 4 starts. I like his form. 2 out of 5 cuts made at the Masters. I don't love, but I like Brian Harman playing the best that he's played in his career. Lefties have had success at the Masters. You think about Phil, you think about Mike Weir, you think about Bubba Watson. This has been a haven for left-handed golfers in the past. Will Zalatoris at 11 didn't play a major championship last season, but 3 runner-ups in his last 8 major starts, second in T6 at the Masters in his last 2 years, T2 at the Genesis this year, T4 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Been a little shaky since then, but Willie Z has finally found form once again, healthy. He has had success at the Masters. I'm happy with him at 11th, just outside the top 10. Victor Hovland is in the top 10. Now, people will say Victor Hovland, down year. He has 5 out of 5. He's 5 out of 5 in cuts made so far in the PGA Tour. T19 at the Genesis is his best finish, but he has a top 20 in his last 5 straight majors, including a T7 at the Masters last season. I like that he took some time off. I think that Victor Hovland, it's not going to be long before he returns to form, so 10 might be too far down for the reigning FedEx Cup champion. Jordan Spieth is at 9th. I went on preferred lines with Joe from Tour Picks last week, and I said I'm nervous for Jordan Spieth, except certain places like the Valero Texas Open and the Masters. He has 6 top 5s in 10 starts at the Masters, coming off a T10 last week after 2 straight missed cuts. The thing with Jordan is, I hope this isn't the case, but it feels like he has become a complete horse for course sort of player. 3rd at the Century this year, T6 at the WM Phoenix Open. I just mentioned the T10 at the Valero Texas Open. These are all places that he has had success in the past. Augusta National is one of those places. It doesn't feel like you can just drop Jordan into anywhere and he'll play well. But Augusta National is one of those places that he has had crazy, crazy success. So I'm comfortable putting him in the 9th spot. Patrick Cantlay at 8th. Again, another guy you say, well, Patrick Cantlay's having a down year. A down year for him is 7 out of 7 cuts made, a T4 at the Genesis Invitational that he probably should have won. He's number 7 in the OWGR. Bad Florida swing, I guess. T36 at the API, T68 at the Players. Finished T14 at the Masters last year with a 75 in the final round, and this will be his first Masters with Joe LaCava, Tiger Woods' caddy for over the last decade, who was on the bag for Tiger in 2019, who has learned from Tiger, who was on the bag for Fred Couples all the way back in, 1993 with Patrick Cantlay. I can't leave Patrick Cantlay down the list farther than 8th. You might get some value out of Patrick Cantlay too right now. We're looking at Patrick Cantlay on the odds boards at plus 3,500. He's going to get a major at some point. It's going to come. Maybe this will be the best you get from Patrick Cantlay. Hideki Matsuyama, the 2021 Masters champion. I have him at 7th. He's finished 19th or better in 8 of the last 9 years at the Masters, and he is red hot right now. In his last 5 events, he's finished T22 or better, 3 top 10s, won that at the Genesis Invitational with that crazy final round. Hideki maybe back into form. 2 years ago, you think about where Hideki was after he won the Zozo Championship, the Sony Open in Hawaii, was knocking on the door to maybe even get to world number 1. And all of a sudden, the back problems flared up, the neck problems, had to withdraw from a few events, fell off, kind of had an up and down year last year. But Hideki back in form. I have him at 7th. Rory McIlroy outside the top 5 in 6th. If I'm wrong about that, I'd be happy to say I'm wrong about that. has a top 10 in 7 of his last 8 majors. The one that he didn't was a miscut at the Masters last year. He did finish as the runner-up the prior year at the Masters, has 7 top 10s at the Masters going back to 2014, and showed some life last week. His best finish of the year on the PGA Tour, a 3rd place at the Valero Texas Open, has also had success to start the year in the 2 events in Dubai for the DP World Tour. So Rory usually takes off around May. He tried to load the schedule this year, I think, to get ahead and to catch fire a month early. We'll see if he is on track to get here early with the Masters, or if he will go into his regular May to September form. Brooks Koepka at 5th. You can make the argument Brooks should be higher. T2 here last year, won the PGA Championship. Jeff, what about all the major success that Brooks has had? I'll tell you a little different last year when Brooks was coming in, had just won the Live Golf event in Orlando for what's that worth, and then finished 19th, 3rd, 6th on Live before the PGA. This year he comes in with his best finish, a 7th place at Mayakoba, but he comes in with a 28th finish at Live Hong Kong, followed by 46th this past week in Miami with 7 over. Does have 3 top 10s, 2 runner-ups in the last 5 Masters, but not in the same form, I don't think, that we saw last year from Brooks Koepka. 4th, I'm going Xander Schauffele. Believe in Xander Schauffele. 8 starts this year, 6 top 10s, 4 top 5s, including 3 of his last four starts. Of course, you're going to say, well, he hasn't won this year. He's got 3 top 10s in the Masters in the last 5 years. Well, of course, he hasn't won a major championship. He's got all forms of success in major championship, hasn't won. I'm still putting Xander here 4th because it just feels like it's getting a little better. That performance in his last start to kind of backdoor in at the Valspar Championship after the runner-up at the Players, I thought was impressive. We'll still see what comes of Xander. Jon Rahm is your defending champion, and I have him at 3rd, a top 10 in 5 of his last 6 major Masters starts, top 10 in 3 majors last year. But for some reason, somehow I'm shocked that we are talking right now, no Live Golf wins in 5 starts. Hasn't finished worse than 14th, hasn't finished better than 3rd in his first Live Golf start. Just kind of surprising, kind of lackluster. I thought that Jon Rahm would be blowing the doors off Live right now. There's a lot going on in his life. He's only played 15 competitive rounds this year. He played 28 at this point in the PGA Tour season last year. So almost half, just over half of the competitive rounds have been played by Jon Rahm. And he withdrew, I believe it was food poisoning, withdrew from the Players last year. Could have even played double the competitive rounds coming into the Masters last year. So a different Jon Rahm. 2nd, I have a Masters rookie. Wyndham Clark, I think, is the 2nd best player in the world right now. A win and 2 runner-ups so far this season. 2nd in the FedEx Cup this year. He's up to 4th in the official world golf rankings. His strokes gained this year off the tee 12th, approach 33rd, putting 15th. It's kind of Scottie light when it comes to what he's putting together, the dynamic strokes gained for Wyndham Clark. I think that he is a big game player who got it done last year, of course, at the U.S. Open, at Los Angeles Country Club, comes into the Masters. I don't think the moment, I don't think the location, I don't think any of that will faze him. We saw what he had to say with all of the psychology work that he has gone through in the last couple of years. Wyndham Clark is out there to win, and I have him at 2nd on the list, red hot right now. Everything about Wyndham points to success this week at the Masters. Don't think it, take it. And then number 1, of course, the world number 1, Scottie Scheffler, wins in 2 of his last 3 starts, runner-up in the 3rd start after he missed that putt, that short birdie try at the Texas Children's Houston Open on the 72nd hole to try to get into a playoff with Steven Jaeger. Just everything about Scottie, the 2022 winner of this event. This is his 5th Masters, T20 or better in his first 4, top 10 in 9 of his last 13 major starts. In those 8 starts that I mentioned this year, not just the win-win T2 that he's had in his last 3, hasn't finished worse than T17. It feels like every year we get to the Masters and Scottie's playing better than he was the year before. 2 years ago when he won, he came in as world number 1, and it was kind of a situation of, well, is he real or pretending? And then Scottie came in and blew the doors off everyone. Last year, he was actually playing better when you put together the stats when he got to the Masters. Didn't quite put it together. Obviously, that became Jon Rahm and Brooks Koepka's Masters. But then this year, maybe playing even better than those last 2 years as Scottie continues to do some amazing things. The putter did seem to lose him on that back nine in Houston, which does maybe slightly worry me, but the way the putting has improved since he's gone to the mallet putter, since Rory basically called him out on it when he appeared on TV for an appearance after his round a couple months back. It's really changed who Scottie Scheffler has been. It's been so impressive. He is the man to beat. His odds are incredible when you look at plus 450. Rory actually has the second best odds at plus 1,000, Rahm at plus 1,100, Xander plus 1,600, Brooks plus 2,000, Spieth plus 2,500. I mentioned some of my steals there. I mentioned Patrick Cantlay at plus 3,500. Don't think you're going to get much better than that. I do like Max Homa at plus 5,500. I like Sungjae Im at plus 9,000. That is reaching back there. Can't believe Sungjae is down that far. Nikolai Højgaard, I mentioned at plus 20,000. I mentioned Denny McCarthy. Where can you get Denny McCarthy? Plus 8,000. Maybe a little too good for Denny right now. But those are some of my thoughts as I rank the field 1 to 89. As you hopefully try to make your Masters picks, try to figure out all of these guys in the field, where everyone stands. Again, it is Scheffler, Clark, Rahm, Schauffele, Koepka, my top five, followed by McIlroy, Matsuyama, Cantlay, Spieth, Hovland. Then if you really want to make out the guys I think can legitimately win, Zalatoris, Harman, Homa, Fitzpatrick to get you down to 14. And really after that, I would be shocked. I would legitimately be shocked if one of those guys outside of the 14 that I list is able to win. But I give you 1 through 89 here on Eyes on Golf. So thanks for listening. And remember to subscribe. Remember to follow. We're going to have a lot of great Masters content coming up. Got a really good alternative sort of Masters podcast that hopefully I'll have later on this week, especially for you sports biz folks, that I think you will find interesting. So that's coming up on Eyes on Golf. I'm Jeff Eisenband. Thanks so much for listening.